Good day to you. Joshua here. Have you ever ran from anything? I remember in high school or grade school hearing about the flight or fight mentality. If something happens, if something goes wrong, internal instincts kick in, and you either stop and you fight whatever's coming at you, or you run, you take flight. I think of Morgan and how before Morgan and I got married, her mother told me that she was a flight mentality, in the sense of she's running and she's not looking back. As in, if something happens and she's in the car and you're not, she's going to run off and leave you, and you're going to be stuck there with whatever it is. So her mama made sure to tell me before we got married that if something went down, Morgan's not looking for you. She is getting out of there for whatever reason. Myself, being more of a slow to act person and not to get too excited, I don't get excited very often. I'm more of a fight mentality. I'm going to sit there and wait and see what's happening and analyze. And Morgan gets on to me all the time. If there's a car accident or something shady happening beside us as we're driving, I want to slow down and see what's happening, and she's like, go, get out of there. So I'm definitely more of a stay and fight type of mentality. But I remember being in preschool, and the preschool was at the Methodist church, and we were in gym, and I think I was 4 years old. And we were walking around, and one of the teachers called me over to her, and I don't remember her name, but I said, "Yes, Miss So-and-so," and she threw a fake snake, like a green fake snake at my feet. And I remember being 4 years old and running, and I remember running out of the gym into the playground before they caught me. And I remember, crying and, just being really scared as that 4-year-old of that snake she threw at me. And I just ran as far as I could. I wasn't looking back. I want you to keep that in mind. The thought of running away from something. And as you do that, go with me to Psalms 3. Go to the 3rd Psalm with me. Now, before we read the 3rd Psalm, I want to read the little header that's above it. It says, "A Psalm of David, when he fled from Absalom, his son." So before we read this psalm, we need to know what it's talking about. So go with me to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 15. 2 Samuel chapter 15, and we're going to be looking at verses 7 all the way down to 17. 2 Samuel chapter 15, starting in verse 7. "And at the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, 'Please let me go and pay my vow, which I have vowed to the Lord in Hebron. For your servant vowed a vow while I lived at Geshur and Aram, saying, if the Lord will indeed bring me back to Jerusalem, then I will offer worship to the Lord.' The king said to him, 'Go in peace.' So he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent secret messengers throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, 'As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then say, Absalom is king at Hebron.' With Absalom went 200 men from Jerusalem, who were invited guests, and they went in their innocence and knew nothing. And while Absalom was offering the sacrifices, he sent for Ahithophel and Gilonite, David's counselor, his city Gala, and the conspiracy grew strong, and the people with Absalom kept increasing." So Absalom, David's son, seems like everything's going fine. But here we read that he is creating a conspiracy to overthrow his father, to overthrow David as king. Verse 13. And a messenger came to David saying, the hearts of the men of Israel have gone after Absalom. Then David said to all of his servants who were with him at Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, or else there will be no escape for us from Absalom. Go quickly, lest he overtake us quickly, and bring down ruin on us, and strike the city with the edge of the sword. And the king's servant said to the king, behold, your servants are ready to do whatever my lord the king decides. So the king went out, and all his household after him. And the king left 10 concubines to keep his house. And the king went out, and all the people after him, and they halted at the last house. This is the setting of the third psalm. Absalom, being David's son, he wants the power for himself. So he gets a bunch of men with using secret messengers to turn their backs on David and to be with Absalom. And David hears about this, and he says, we got to run. We have to flee, or Absalom will come at us with the edge of the sword. Thinking about the third psalm, I wonder when David wrote it. I wonder if in this moment, when everyone's grabbing their things, when they're, packing their bags to run, to leave Jerusalem, I wonder if he took a moment to sit down and write this 8-verse psalm. Or I wonder if it was after the fact. I wonder if it was after they left and they had come to a stopping place and he wrote this. I also wonder if he told a scribe, said, hey, I have to leave. You write this for me. And then he gave him what to write. But I wonder when all this was written, in the process of David hearing the news about his son and then having to pack up and leave. I just wonder. Go with me to Psalm 3, starting in verse 1. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. Here we read that David is talking to God and he's saying, hey, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that don't like me. There are a lot of people that are rising against me right now. In verse 2, evidently there have been some people saying, God is not with David anymore. God is not going to take care of David. David is not in God's hands anymore. Because it says, many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. Other translations say, there is no deliverance for him in God. People were thinking, this is it for David. God is no longer with David. Verse 3. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. So in the first 2 verses, David's like, hey, there's all these people that are against me. But instead of just harping on that and saying the world is against me, he says, but you, O Lord, are a shield about me. I think of times in my life and how it just seemed like the world was against me. Or things just weren't going my way. I wasn't having a good day or week or month or year. And looking back on that, I tended to complain more instead of saying, Lord, you're my shield. But this is what David does. Verses 5 and 6. I lay down and slept, and I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Remember, this is when this is around the timing of Absalom coming to kill him. And David says, there's so many people against me, but I know that you're the shield that's around me. And in all this chaos and stuff happening, David says, I lay down and slept. He went to sleep. And then he says, I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. And I don't know if you've ever been in a storm in life where it's just chaos or something's just not going the way you wanted it to. And I think about how David, like I said, he throws out how many people are against him, and then he makes the statement that God is his shield. And a peace comes over David that he says, I lay down and slept. I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments where in the middle of chaos, just a whirlwind around you. But you've talked to God and you said, hey God, I know this is not going the way I wanted it to. But I know you're in control. I know that you're taking care of me. And I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments of just pure quietness and stillness and calm. Even though there's a whirlwind around you, but within you, you lay down and you sleep, and you take a rest, and you take a moment. And this is what David does here. He has a moment. Verse 7. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God. Listen to this. For you strike all my enemies on the cheek. I'm thinking, okay, David, that's pretty specific, to strike an enemy on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. So David is saying, hey, these people that are wicked and are after me, hit them in the face and break out their teeth. I don't think I've ever asked God to break someone's teeth out for me. But here David says, do those things to the wicked, to those that are evil. Verse 8. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessings be on your people. What's interesting to me about this last verse is he says salvation belongs to the Lord. Deliverance belongs to the Lord. So the Lord can give it to whomever he wants to. And in this last phrase he says, your blessing be on your people. He doesn't say, Lord bless me, or Lord bless my family. He says, Lord, let your blessing be on your people. And I think of how in this moment David is just in turmoil because his son's coming to kill him, and he's having to leave and he's having to flee. And he ends his statement with, Lord, let your blessing be on everybody else. In this moment, David decides not to think solely of himself, but he decides to think of God's people. He decides to think about someone else. And I spend a lot of time thinking about Joshua Hester. I spend a lot of time thinking about the things that I go through and just myself. I can be a very selfish person sometimes. But here, in all of this, David says, let your blessings be on your people. He thought about the people of God. He thought about someone other than himself. And I think that's something that I need to learn from. I think about David in this setting and how I don't have any children. So I don't know what it's like for a child of mine to want to kill me or to overthrow me. I cannot imagine knowing that your child that you raised, they hated you so bad that they wanted to kill you. I don't know what that's like, and I hope nobody knows what that is like. So I would say that David was in a storm of life. He was experiencing something that most people will never experience. But even in that, he takes a moment. Instead of just complaining, he says, "Oh Lord, you are a shield about me." He took a moment. He took just a little moment to experience the calmness of God. And in that, he says that he was to the point where he lay down and slept. And if you are experiencing a storm in life, it's hard to be connected. It's hard for all of us to be connected. And I think I'm here and I'm in my own little bubble and I'm doing okay. And I almost assume that everyone else is in their own little bubbles and they're doing okay, but that's not true. That's not how it is. If you're experiencing something, I hope that you take a moment to talk with God, to say, "Hey, there's lots of stuff happening, but also I know that you're in control." And at the end, or before we got to the end, he says, "Lord, all the evil things, I pray that you take them away." I mean, David said, "I hope you hit them in the mouth and knock their teeth out." That's what he says. "Hope you take away these evil people." And then at the end, he says, instead of thinking about himself, he says, "Let your blessings be on your people," or to be on everyone else. So I have a challenge for us this week. Number one, if you're experiencing something, if you're in a storm, take a moment with God and take advantage of the peace that comes with Him and being in Him. And number two, just as David did right here, I want you to think about somebody else. Like I said, in this whole time of Corona, I've kind of stayed in my bubble and thinking that I'm okay, so everyone else is okay. I pray that, or my challenge for us this week is to get out of our own bubbles, to get out of our own selfish ways, and to think about someone else. And to call them, or to send them a message, or just say, "Hey, how's your day going? Hadn't heard from you in a while." Think about someone else and do something. Encourage them. I thank you for taking the time to listen today. And if you're not back with us, it's an understatement for me to say that I miss you and that we miss you. And it's an understatement to say that we love you and that I love you. And if you need anything, call me or Rodney or Marie or the elders. We'd love just to talk to you. Or if you have any needs, please let us know. We love you, and I hope you have a great day.